Well, we are back. Not a little different this time. Not a tough talk episode. We're just talking. RJ, how you feeling?
I'm feeling really good, man. I had a good day today. How are you feeling?
I'm doing all right. This feels like more like an emergency meeting, even though it's not an emergency. But we're going through Conor McGregor, the one, the only Conor McGregor. He was
The
on Ariel's The
Notorious.
MMA Hour yesterday. Yesterday.
I watched it today.
I think he
It
went
could
on
have,
last night, and it was posted today.
yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think you're right because at the end of Ariel's regular episode, he was like, "We'll be back."
Oh.
I didn't watch it until today. It's pretty special when he comes on outside of his normal Monday, Wednesday, scheduled
Yeah, I
videos.
mean, and it's
He'll do any, he'll do anything for Connor. Man,
anything for Connor. It's his world. We're just living in it. But
facts.
some interesting topics that I felt we should talk about. And
Yeah.
what better time to do it?
What stood out to you the most, Ty?
He went through a lot. I think we start off with his upcoming bout with Michael Chandler because
Eh,
obviously that's the most nearsighted thing that he has going up. So I think the tough conversation, the Ultimate Fighter scuffle they had, and the matchup. I think there's a lot to unfold here. So let's get into it.
yeah. Straight up, I haven't like really seriously watched The Ultimate Fighter since I don't know. I definitely watched like the first two or three, and then I definitely watched the one with like Nate, and then there was like the Brandon Schaub and the Kimbo Slice.
Yeah.
Like those, they were like seasons that stood out. I haven't been a hardcore Ultimate Fighter fan necessarily. Like the TV show gets a little bit dramatic sometimes, but I will say with Connor, everything Connor does is like must see TV. You know what I'm
Touches
saying?
it
And
turns
like,
to gold.
yeah, man, and and Chandler, he's a great fighter and he's good on the mic. So I just think this will be an interesting, season of the Ultimate Fighter, and like I don't know. Connor seems to have a lot of respect for Chandler. He didn't really have like any trash talk to go along with that. He said they got into it. I guess he has a couple of his like homegrown, gym buddies that like he got on the show, and they're obviously going to be on his team. So
Hmm.
like, I'm sure tempers were getting
It,
flared.
it's the fight game. What can you expect?
Yeah, of
Especially
course.
with the personalities of Connor and Chandler, they both have that flair. I mean, you can't really describe it, but you could tell they just both have it. That
Yeah,
competitive
feels
spirit.
well, and competitive certainly, but also like they just have a way with words. Like it is very uh professional wrestling. Like it's like their personalities are bigger than their fights,
Yeah.
and you take on like so much of them that like the fighting part of it only seems like a small piece of it. It's more about what are they going to say, who are they going to call out, you know, how jacked are they going to look. It's like the whole personality takes on a whole nother being almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think this will be a fun season. I'm with you on. I've never been a big the Ultimate Fighter guy. Like I've seen the Diaz and the Dominic Cruz season. Like those were fun ones. But I'm excited to see what this one has in store. I hope we get to see that little scuffle, and if there's any more, we'll see what happens.
I'll give it a chance, that's for sure. I will.
Absolutely.
I'll try it out, and even if you have to fast forward to the fights, that's okay too. How do you see that fight going between Chandler and Connor?
Man,
It could go a million different ways, or the way we think it's gonna go.
Connor can come out and Jose Aldo 13-second KO Chandler. That could happen, and that would be like would we even be surprised? Is the crazy thing because
Yeah,
it's almost like anything Connor does, we're not surprised anymore. But
sure. Yeah, I
do I
mean,
see it going like that? Probably not.
when you've done that much, you know what I mean, in the sport. I mean, at this, it's funny that we've been talking about it for so long. Like, it still feels almost like it's new, but then you're like, actually, that was 10 years ago. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I know you follow MMA very deeply, as I always have. It's the only sport that I really care about. And I remember the rumblings of Conor McGregor from the Cage Warriors double
Yep.
champ, like making his debut. Like I was already on board when everybody still doubted him, when everybody still thought he was, just like a hype train and all this. I remember, I mean, you could ask all my buddies. I bet against Jose Aldo. And that was like that was the one that
That
nobody
was.
thought.
Whew.
Yeah, it was crazy. But I'm like, you know what? This guy's young. He's a knockout artist. He's got a kind of funky style. Jose, at that point in his career, I mean, he was still the best we've ever seen up until
Yeah.
that point. But I mean, he had stopped. Like he would had a very impressive finish rate all the way up until that fight, or it kind of stopped a little bit before that fight. He started getting like decision, 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 decision. The fights were getting a little bit closer, and a guy like Connor, you could see how he like mentally messed up. My cat is like bugging me. You could see how he was getting in Aldo's head a bit, and I think we will see some of those tactics. I think Chandler will get frustrated with the. It depends on again. It depends on which Connor comes. Because
Yeah,
remember,
absolutely.
with the Poirier fights, it's like one he was real nice and nice, and the other one he's like talking about his wife.
Some of the
It's
worst
it's
things that's ever been
so
said.
yeah, it's so like you don't know what side of it you're gonna get. Um, as far as the game plans go, I think Connor does what he does, and then we're either going to see one of two things out of Michael Chandler. We're going to see the Michael Chandler that everybody loves come out, guns blazing, swinging with everything he has, mixing in the wrestling here and sprinkling in the wrestling, I should
Just a
say,
blast double for fun.
just to like put him against the cage and try to mix it up. I mean, because he has all the tools. But Chandler gets hit, and Chandler is a little bit sloppy, and he has those bursts of energy, but we do see him fade and take his moments to breathe. So in one of those moments, Connor could get the
Yeah.
the
The
pretty
sniper.
clean the pretty clean KO, or we see Chandler come in there, instead of sprinkling in the wrestling, he could mix in the wrestling, try to pace himself against Connor. Because again, Connor comes out fast, always does. So if you can make it out of the first round, start mixing in the takedowns. I
Hmm.
think Chandler's got every chance in the world to win this fight. He has all the tools. Will he choose the proper game plan, or does he throw it all out the window and leave himself open for Connor to clip him with something?
Yeah, that's a big question that there's only one way to really find the answer to, but Chandler certainly has all of the tools to get this done in pretty dominating fashion, if I'm being honest. Now, we can't undersell how good Connor is at takedown defense. We saw that against
Yeah,
Khabib. He had the best takedown defense against Khabib in his run.
yeah.
So I think we can't shy away from the fact that Connor is going to stuff some takedowns if they do come, but how many can he really stuff after being away for so long? The conditioning will be in question for sure. It always has been throughout his career.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I mean, if somebody like, let's say, Chad Mendez, obviously Chad Mendez was a late notice replacement for Jose Aldo, um, but that was also at 145 pounds.
Hmm.
Now, Connor's obviously had the camps for like Khabib and all these other wrestlers that those were the two big ones that he's faced so far. Eddie Alvarez has great wrestling,
Yep.
doesn't really use it, sort of like Michael Chandler. But I don't doubt that Connor's wrestling defense has gotten much better since those fights, or at least since the Chad Mendes fight. However, Chad Mendes was pretty comfortable controlling him, dropping some big bombs from the top position. Chandler's much bigger
Yep.
than Chad Mendes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if it goes to the ground. Uh, this is actually interesting though. Conor said since he broke his leg in half, he had to emphasize a lot of guard training
Yep.
uh, early in his recovery. So maybe his jujitsu's looking really sharp. We don't really know. I'm curious to see how Conor's movement is, and I'm curious to see if he opens up with a big kick like he usually does,
Yeah.
considering his leg has been severely compromised.
That yeah, a lot of things you said there. I'm just going to touch on a few. The size of Chandler, we just well, I don't know if we just found out, but this fight's going to be at 170. I don't know if you
Yeah,
knew that, or I didn't actually. Don't think I knew that until recently. But
it happened.
that kind of changed it for me because Chandler walks around at 190 something.
Yeah,
He's
I
going to
mean
be
Conor's
a big boy.
for sure. I think Conor's pretty close to that 190. I mean, the way from the looks of him, man, his chest and shoulders, his cheeks. I mean, he's looking hydrated to
Yeah,
say the least.
he's hydrated. What was the other thing? Oh, his leg. Yeah. Well, I can kind of feel for Connor here. I have a metal rod in my collarbone,
Eh,
and it does cause some problems sometimes. So I
man,
don't know how kicking is going to be because I know from experience if something hit my collarbone like metal and like if I hit a person or something hit me, it doesn't feel pleasant at all.
eh,
And if that metal rod is right down his shin bone, he says he's kicking all right, but I don't know if I believe him because I have the personal experience.
it's I don't. There's no metal in this body, but I tell you what, I can't really imagine psychologically what you'd have to go through to literally like snap your leg in half and then fix it and then decide that you want to go get to a fight again. Which actually can bring us to our next point, how Ariel asked him the question, what motivates a guy that has, the satin sheets? And he had the funny
Everything.
line about, I got satin, I got silk, I got the Egyptian cotton. Like, that was a classic
Just
Conor McGregor line.
yep, nothing
And,
short.
yeah, it was just brilliant. And he spoke about just, competition. And, and to me, that resonates because, like, and I don't have as much as Connor by any means, but
Not many
I
people
can
do.
imagine. Yeah, but I can imagine with a life that's just like anything you want, you can just have it. You say the word and it comes true. For someone like that, I think there's a desire and a will in every man's belly to want to be tested and to want to like prove your, like that pride that you have in yourself. He wants to know that he still has it. And there was a time, I don't know if he was ever officially ranked number one pound for pound in the world, but there was a time it was in consideration,
Yeah,
So I uh I would love to see Connor get back in the win column. I don't know if it would get him an immediate title fight, especially at 55 or 70. It's like there's a lot of like
yeah,
there's too many people in line for me to see that. I would rather him do some fun fights. If he wins a handful of them in a row and against top guys, sure, let's get him another title shot and see if he can make history again. I'm not mad about it.
yeah, no.
Um,
Um,
but I wouldn't want to see that right off the bat. I just would love to see how he, how his preparation goes and how the fight actually goes, and then we'll figure it out from there, right?
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that have to happen before a title shot for Conor McGregor. Even though he's saying, "Oh, let me beat Michael Chandler and then get another one at 170." I don't know how soon if that's an option, but I would love to see him get a win and rack up a few. We'll give him another shot. Um,
Absolutely.
I've never questioned Connor's determination or motivation, whatever you want to call it. He always seems to have that what do you want to call it, drive for competition. He's done it throughout his whole career, no matter who he was facing. It always felt like he was there to fight. All the other nonsense outside, noise, whatever, that's the show. That's for the payday. That's for the fans. But when it came down to it, he was always ready to fight. And that's one thing that I greatly respect about Connor. No matter how much money he's accumulated or how the silk sheets, Satan sheets, whatever. Um, it's always been amazing to see that he's always been there to fight. Has he ever pulled out of a fight? He's never pulled out of a fight.
Connor? Um, I don't think so.
At least in the UFC, I know I don't think he has.
I don't think so. I mean, there have been a few fights that fell through, but I don't think any of them were his doing, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
There was
if
like
that's true,
there was the Rafael dos Anjos fight.
that one
Uh,
fell through from I think RDA though.
yep. There was the first Aldo.
That was Aldo. He got
That was
injured.
Aldo. Um, I don't think he's ever pulled that off. And
Yeah.
this just reminded me of a great clip too, and it's to your point, Tyler. Like Connor doesn't strike me as the type of guy who's like afraid to scrap with anybody. It's that classic Irish fighting, like, like that just put your dukes up and let's figure this thing out. There was a scene, I don't remember which fight it was, either before or after a fight, but Tyron Woodley was walking through the locker room. You remember this?
Yep, I
And
remember
and,
this.
and Woodley was a big 170, and I believe the champion at the time. And he kind of was like, "What's up, Connor?" Like, "What's up?" And Connor was like, "What's up, then?" It just felt very like, "Whoa, dude! Like, you want to fight the champ right now?" Like, all right, It just yeah, I just remember seeing that clip and being like, "Damn, dude, he's like really about this life,"
He's about it.
Yeah, I have always had a very healthy respect for Conor McGregor. I can't stand the people who don't know the sport's history outside of Conor.
Yeah,
Those types of
you
fans
know,
like bother me a little bit because you'll bring up someone else's beautiful statistics and they're like, "Well, Conor," and it's like, come on, man. There's
Connor,
more fighters out there than Conor, but Conor is I mean,
a staple.
he brought the sport to an entirely new level, basically single-handedly. I mean, there's been many, many great fighters over the years, but when you look at his resume, it's just it's incredible. It speaks for itself. I mean, Max Holloway before anyone really knew how good Max Holloway was, Dustin Poirier before anybody knew how good Dustin Poirier was. And I'm not talking about the later fights. I'm talking about this was
Yep.
early in his career. The Chad Mendez's, the Jose Aldo's, the Eddies of the world, and like the Nate Diaz. I mean, I, I'm a huge Nate fan. I thought Nate won both of those fights. That's just me, but Nate's the bigger guy, and Connor stepped in there and brought it to him. You know what I mean? And it was an incredible fight. He talked about doing the Nate trilogy. That could be our segue into that. Do you think that fight ever happens?
The Nate trilogy. Do I think it ever happens in MMA? I don't think so. I think they might box. I think that's the only thing I see for them because at this point in their careers, Nate's gone. We don't have Nate anymore. Where's he going? I
He
think the
said he
only
might come
option
back.
is for boxing.
Yeah,
I would honestly like to see them box. I
be
would be there
interesting.
for it.
It would actually be very interesting because, Connor obviously has incredible hands, but his kicks, especially in the second fight with Diaz, kind of created a bit more of the gap, especially in the striking and the pressure and the points scored. Those leg kicks were huge for him. So it would be interesting to see a boxing match. I'm not writing off the MMA match. I think if they offered Nate enough money and a little bit of, just kind of let him do whatever he wants, maybe a one-fight deal, I think he would come back and do the trilogy with Connor. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I could see Nate coming back for it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a possibility. I would just like to see. I don't want to see Nate lose again. Just let him ride off into the sunset with his submission
And
over Tony, and let's be on his old way. I don't want to see Nate lose again.
I can't stand seeing Nate Diaz lose, especially in fights that, the old time thing about Nate Diaz is like, and both the Diaz boys, it's like, if the fight was no time limit in the street, there's not a whole lot of fights that they're going to lose. I mean, if the fight just went forever until somebody was dead, the Diaz boys are going to walk away, I think, from a lot of those fights
Yeah.
that they lost on the scorecards. But speaking of, Tyler, of people who left the UFC. What do you take away from what Conor had said about Francis Ngannou?
That he touched on it, and he didn't say anything outright bad about Francis, which was good.
No,
He wasn't talking no nonsense. He was just giving his opinion, which I liked.
and
And I think he had great points. I think, well, we don't know how great his points are yet. We got to see how it unfolds for Francis. But Connor said he doesn't think it was a great choice on Francis's part. And I think I said a few videos ago, I think I touched on it, and I think I said something similar. I just don't know how that's going to play for Francis. I heard today that they were looking at Deontay Wilder for him. And that's, I don't know how I feel about Francis against Deontay.
sure, yeah. I mean, well, first of all, Deontay Wilder is the Francis Ngannou of boxing, of heavyweight boxing.
Yeah.
He's the a little bit less technical, but extremely powerful puncher. I think his boxing is more than likely light years ahead of Francis Ngannou, considering Francis has never fought professional boxing before. But it is basically a puncher versus a puncher. And to be honest, like I would watch it, but it's not really what gets me going. Um,
No.
I've always been, I kind of agreed with McGregor before I even heard it. Like that was sort of my take on the situation since it's happened. I mean, I always thought, Francis, the UFC's offering you, it might not be like FU money, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still life-changing money, you know? And I feel like we have talked about this before, but I'll just mention it again. It's like you want in-cage sponsors. Well, you can't get those because they have a contract. You know what I mean? The
Mm-hmm.
UFC has a contract. You can't have in-cage sponsors. Well, we want health insurance. Well, here's $8 million. Go get your own
You
health
can pay
insurance.
for it.
It's not that big of a deal, buddy. Like you go get it. Not to mention things like Connor mentioned, the PI, the Performance Institute. He could go there at any time, free of charge, get a physical therapist, sit in the ice bath, get his workouts in, get a healthy meal. You know what I mean? It's like all those things are coming from the UFC. There's not many other organizations that are going to do that type. And to be honest, the big fights that everyone in the MMA community is talking about when it like considering Francis Ngannou's career is the John Jones, is the Stipe Miocic, is the Tom Aspinalls, it's like these are the people that we all want to see you fight.
Yeah.
They're in the UFC, the leading organization in fighting. Where are you going? You know what I mean? Like what kind of freedom do you want? Because I saw a rumor that he's signing with the PFL. Maybe the PFL. I can't imagine the PFL is going to pay him more than $8 million a fight, and that's before
Yeah.
pay-per-view buys. He'd probably get much more than that if he sold his pay-per-views.
If he fought John Jones,
If he
that pay
fought,
per view
you
would
come back
be
and
unreal.
you come back and fight John Jones. You'll make a lot of money, man. Like
Yeah.
like I don't really understand. It's hard for me to understand why you would walk away from your job. You say the freedom. Well, I don't know what that means, man. Like you want to fight, we got fights for you. You want money, we got money for you. Again, you want insurance, go buy it yourself, dude. $600 a month. Like I don't even if you're a fighter, okay, so it's 800 a month, it's 1,000 a month. Here's
That's
$8 million. You want sponsors? Well, I'm sorry about that, but what are the sponsors going to give you? Money? Here's money. We're giving you money.
we have a lot.
We have money. We'll give you money. So, like, the whole thing, it's just like now you don't have a job and you're going to sign with the PFL. You're going to fight whoever they throw at you. Yeah, you'll win.
Who who's the
How the
heavyweight
heavy?
champion there?
That's a great question, Tyler. I have no idea. I'm not
It's
so
not
sure
John
that
Jones.
it's
It's
not
not John
John
Jones.
Jones.
No
And
disrespect to the
no
PFL champ, but
disrespect, I'm
it's not
sure
John Jones.
I'm sure whoever it is a really tough guy, but you want to go beat that guy?
We're talking legacy here. And
Yeah,
if you want a
man.
legacy, you go beat John Jones. You go beat Stipe for the second time in the
Yeah,
trilogy.
settle that trilogy. I mean, this is, if you want to be in the premier organization, this all started with Conor's comment, right? We'll bring it back to
Yeah.
Conor. I think Conor was absolutely right. Conor, now granted, Conor gets a little bit of special treatment from the UFC, right? Like he can kind of
Hmm.
do whatever he wants, and the UFC sort of lets him do that. They did let him do the boxing thing. They do let him do that. But all that says to me is take a page out of McGregor's book. Sell yourself. Sell your fights. Make yourself a big deal. The UFC can only promote what you they they can't promote you
Yeah.
any further than your picture if you don't give them it. Conor
Yeah.
sold himself. He was an absolute, you know, he wrote the book on self-promotion, and that's the reason that he was able to do those things. You know what I mean? Everybody
And
can do that. It's not that he's special in the sense that he's the only one that can do it. He's special in the sense that he's the only one that knew he could do it. Him and Chael Sonnen.
to be to be fair, there's not many people that can work the mic like Conor McGregor. You
Of
got
course.
Conor, Chael, and can I even think of a third? I mean, those two on the mic, there's not many people that can say things on the spot like that.
I
So
agree. I
I
mean,
will give them benefit of the doubt, but still, you gotta sell something.
you got to do something. Francis comes in and he's sort of like, yeah. And it's like, Francis, come on, man. You're the heavyweight champion of the world. Let's go, baby. You look
You're
like you're a Mack truck from Africa, blood diamond digging coal mine. Just let's go, dude. You're supposed to be the scariest dude on earth.
you look like the scariest dude on earth. Just say something that makes you the scariest dude.
Even if he said nothing, just like looked at people with sunglasses on and like growled at them, like that would get more clicks than like him acting like, the UFC is oppressing. It's like, come on, man. You're the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see where he goes. All the best to him. But speaking of Connor being able to do anything he wants, what's going on with USADA here? I've
Mm.
heard a lot of different things, and there's a lot of, I feel like a lot of things are unanswered because he hasn't been tested, and the fight is pretty soon.
um, yeah, I think this is one of those things where somehow someone in the media or even fans on the internet kind of came up with what they thought was the rule. Now, these rules probably change all the time. It's even sort of similar to the hydration test that or the IV bag rather that just
Hmm.
came up in the news about Islam Makhachev. It's like, oh well, he had an IV. It's like, well, uh, so some jurisdictions you're allowed to take up to this amount of an IV, and then some you're not allowed to have any. I think it's like most of us probably don't actually know the rules. These rules change all the time. If he's been tested, if he hasn't been tested, I can't say. Um, I mean, we saw Brock Lesnar come back, fight Mark Hunt, popped immediately afterwards, and then he just like ran off with a pocket full of cash. So like, I'm sure there's ways around it, um, because USADA doesn't come in from the athletic commissions, right? It doesn't come in from the local athletic commissions. It's not an over governing body. They're paid by the UFC to come and conduct this business. So if the
Hmm.
UFC says, "Hey, leave our guy alone," that's their boss. I mean,
They're
so
getting paid.
they're gonna do what the boss says. Now, does that mean I think Connor's dirty? I think there was a time where he took things to help his healing process, and I don't shame him for that at all. I think your leg snaps in half and you want to heal it as fast as you can and go back to
Yeah.
being a very high caliber athlete. I think it's okay. He wasn't competing, so who cares? Um, I think he'll be clean by the time he fights. Um, I don't know how soon he has to be tested in order to fight. Like I don't really like. I'm not going to pretend like I know that stuff. I've heard
Yeah.
different. I've heard the 6 months thing. I've heard all kinds of stuff, but um, it's Connor can kind of do whatever he wants. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure Uncle Dana is going to give him a little bit of that privilege, and we'll see. But I do think he fights clean. I think the tests will all come back clean when he fights Michael Chandler. I don't think Connor's a dirty fighter.
I don't think he has malintent for what he's taking. I think what you said was spot on. He was just taking it to heal quickly and get back to doing what he loves, and that's fighting. So hopefully he gets his test, does what he has to do, and let's get him back in the octagon.
Agreed. I'm very excited to see Conor McGregor return.
It's gonna be a spectacular, spectacular fight. That Conor McGregor walkout is going to be otherworldly. I think we're all ready for that walkout.
They haven't
Um,
announced the venue for that yet, have they? I think they said it's either Vegas or Texas
I
or
haven't seen anything unless it came out, and I haven't seen it, but I don't know.
I think they were kicking around Texas, Vegas, and and MSG. They definitely are going to bring it to one of their big arenas more than likely.
Let's get an MSG. We need
Oof,
that in our life.
it'd be a lot of fun.
Um, that's all I got on Connor. I felt like this was a good time just let's talk about Conor McGregor a little bit after that MMA hour with Ariel. There were some fun topics. Do you have any other topics on Connor?
Connor, we talked about the trilogy. We talked about what he said about Ngannou. Talked about his drive. We talked about Chandler. We talked about the Ultimate Fighter. Talked about his
Ngannou.
satin sheets. How about just the fact that he's one more thing on Connor? It seemed to me that he was very comfortable being back in the talk, back in the MMA space. He went on Ariel's show. He had like 50 people with him, so they say, and he only had 20 minutes. They had to clip on his mic, get him a coffee. He had to rush over to go to Fox News so that he could talk about his donations to the first responders project for 9/11. I forget the exact name of it. I wish I could plug it. But, so he's obviously like a very busy guy. He's got a lot going on. He just made a movie, kids, wife, like, in another country other than his home. So the guy's all over the place, but it still seems like when you bring up fighting, he just kind of lights up and I think it's a good time for Conor McGregor to get back into the cage. We're not hearing too much about drama in his life, thank goodness. Like there's a while where you every other week you hear something that
Yeah.
just kind of doesn't feel good, and I'm just happy that Connor seems to be really high spirits, and I think he's going to come ready to fight. Excited to see.
I think doing this like Ariel show and all like the MMA stuff, he feeds off of it. We saw it in the Jose Aldo buildup. They did a world tour, and he was just in his prime. He felt like it looked like he was at home, and it ended up being he really was at home because of his performance. So I think it's better for him to be busier, in my opinion, at least in the MMA sense. I don't know what else he does. I know he does the movies. He talked about that on the show, how the movie was one of the hardest things he's ever done, and how like doing the MMA camps and MMA stuff is easy compared to like making a movie. So I'm glad that's how he feels because then he'll be training. It'll be easy for him to train, easy for him to do the media and go out there and perform.
Yeah, Ty, you know as well as I do, like even a fight camp for the biggest fight of your life, what are you doing? 3 hours, 4 hours, like you can only do so much training in a day, especially at the pace that, at the highest level. You're only going to do maybe an hour of striking, maybe an hour of grappling, maybe an hour of cardio, strength and conditioning, a jog. Like, how much can you possibly do in a
Yeah.
day? I mean, it's only a couple hours. You know what I mean? Other than that, you're eating, you're resting, you're recovering. Uh, Shooting a movie, something that he's not really used to. They said, they had him up all day and night trying to get these shots, and he's doing his big things, and they're like, okay, cool,
Mhm.
same time tomorrow, and he's like, hold up, I got I get it. I don't think I would be cut for that type of life either.
I would not be.
He didn't seem too excited about doing another movie after this.
Not at all. Not
Right,
at
right.
all.
He wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to do another one. He was like, we'll see how it looks. So I was out of my element.
But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for him to be back. I hope he feels good. I hope everything's good, and I hope he has a good camp. I hope Michael Chandler has a good camp, and I hope we get a good fight for the fans. No, I really hope we don't get any like rough stoppages, like an injury or something. That would just be horrible. I for any fight, but specifically coming off of Conor's last fight.
Yeah, respect to both of these guys. I mean, they're both absolute powerhouses, and it's an exciting one. It's going to be a big fight. It'd probably be a top 10, maybe top 5 all-time pay-per-view buy,
Oh yeah, and it
especially
has Conor
following,
McGregor's name.
well, and Michael Chandler, and it's following the Ultimate Fighter, so maybe that'll bring some new eyeballs. Who knows? But I think it's going to
Yeah.
be very hype, and it's going to be a really big fight.
Yeah, it'll be a big one. Um, that's all I got.
That's all I
If
got,
you
brother.
got anything else,
Nah,
well,
I'm tapped on
just
Connor.
had to drop in, film a little Conor McGregor talk. Not an official tough talk episode, just chatting. Thought it was a
We
good
just
time.
we just love you guys.
Of course, more content, more content. They'll never stop coming. Um, thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far, like, comment, subscribe. As always, we'll see you later in the week for the recap of 286
And
Usman versus Leon this weekend.
if there's anybody out there that has any interesting topics or questions you'd like to ask us, shoot them through. We'll be happy to answer those for you.
Absolutely. Shoot it on any social media of ours and I'll see it
Drop
somewhere.
drop it right in the comments.
Absolutely. That's all from us. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Peace, Tyler.